We look sparse tonight.
Huh?
Said we look sparse tonight.
Young people words.
What millennial words means?
Pre-millennial. Yeah, that's a pre-millennial word.
Old people words. What does it mean?
Sparse,
Yes.
few.
It's good for the
So let me find the share button. There we go.
How you doing?
And we'll share this over
I'm
here.
happy it's the weekend.
Your what?
I'm happy it's the weekend.
Well, it's a good thing. It's always good.
It's Friday.
I know. The school's over. Weekend.
Hmm. All right. It's taking its time to.
I ate healthy today.
Yeah, I can't think
Well,
of it.
just wait.
I'm proud.
Yeah.
What do you what's money?
Everyone's
You-
shocked.
Yeah.
So you don't
You're
have
at the, you're at the
Right before she came home.
the quarter in it.
You cried.
Waffle
Wow.
fry.
You were starving.
Last I saw,
Fat shaming me.
has two things of soup over here now appeared a cinnamon roll, cookie, and cheese balls. Look at that.
Those are good cheese.
I was gonna get another one of those cheese balls, but they, says they were on sale, but they were out of them.
Well, these guys,
Well, they're really
Yeah.
good.
I had them on sale, but they were out.
oh, that's a, that mix that you were getting, that was good stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The one in the bag or the one in the or
The
the,
one in that plastic jar.
Because I ate healthy today, I can eat unhealthy.
Okay. This is different. There we go.
no chosen allowed.
I'm good today. I'm just not the right thing.
There we go.
Oh, I can't.
Well, changed to November and winter came, huh?
Vengeance.
Ooh.
Yeah. Did you snow at your house last night?
Just a little. My steps were all icy this morning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we had some on the vehicles when we went out this morning, but it looked out last night, just a little before 11:30, they were showing on the news that it was snowing in the area, so we thought, let's turn the light on. And we looked out there and boy, it was coming down pretty good, but it wasn't really sticking on much anything.
I have a friend that lives over on Motor, and he says he got 3 inches of rain in his rain.
Wow. Yeah, I don't know how much rain I had yesterday. I didn't think, we didn't have that much.
Well, no, according to the news, it got 6 inches northeast Ohio.
Over what period of time?
24-hour period, yeah. So it was on the television tonight.
Yeah, we had a lot of steady rain, but never really came down really hard. So,
These are all gone.
yeah, I took a lot of leaves down. So,
What was the name of the guy you recommended for mayor?
Mike Wheeler,
Weaver, right?
yeah, I like him. I like Mike Lyons too. I mean, they're both good guys. Mike, whoever wins, Mike's gonna win. So we have 2 Mikes running in the village for mayor. So Mike's gonna win. I'm 100% certain. I'm calling the election right now. Mike's gonna win.
Well, if Mike, old Mike, if he one that caused the scrutiny, Richfield up, he's the one that make village build all them office buildings, what's the good, these office buildings, build all them.
What's his name?
Wozniak. Yeah, yeah. And,
The good thing about Wheeler is that he's a businessman,
Yeah.
not a politician.
well, see, Mike Lyons has been there a couple of times as mayor. He's been doing village politics for a long time.
Well, you gotta take care of lines, because how long before you can retire? But if he retires, he'll retire with the same money he's working at now.
Well, see, he's been councilman, he's been mayor, and he's also worked for the city of Norton as their law director. And all that. But Wheeler's been councilman, but he's a businessman. You know that corner where, before Speedway came up here, the corner down there at Boston Mills and Brecksville Road? He tried to put he's got a business, and he tried to put it in there. And the village kept him from going in there. They didn't think his business was big enough. Well, now his business is a lot bigger, and it would have been here. He was gonna clean up that whole corner.
What, where the old gas company?
Yeah. He was gonna clean up that whole corner. But the village planning and zoning, that's who
Your infinite
was the
wisdom.
kibosh on that. Yeah, he wasn't big enough. They were holding out. They were gonna get a big business in there.
I'm surprised they haven't just bought that property, they're buying everything.
Buy everything else, yeah. So who knows? The way they did that one thing, they may have bought it and not told anybody. But no, he I think recognizes the need, and Mike Lyons does too, I think. But I think Mike Wheeler understands it more as a businessman. That, okay, we got the big office development down there. What we need is small business in Richfield.
Well, who owns that Speedway property over there now?
Well, that was guy I graduated with. Who do I want to say? Jim Smith. Yeah,
He owns that?
yeah, because he had. Boy, which one are we talking about?
Yeah,
You're right over here.
Oh, Speedway, there, corner of Boston Road.
Oh, you're talking down there. Oh, yeah, down there. I thought you were meaning over here now, because he had
Yeah, that
exit
was
11.
Speedway.
Yeah, he had exit 11, and they moved because the gas town down there had, remember, it used to be Pilot and Speedway together, I think there for a while. And then they split them off or something, but at any rate, whichever it was when it was down there, now it's Speedway up here. But they,
No, the Speedway was down there, it's Pilot up
the
here.
Pilot up here, that's right, moved up here. But at any rate, I'm not
Would you
sure who
like to have
owns it.
that money give it to you?
Hmm.
That would give it to him, that property up there.
Up here? Yeah, because remember, my place restaurant used to be out here in the end. And now I don't know who has the property down there now.
Okay, that's what we're wondering. I figured Jim Smith wound up with that. Of course, he had no money at the time, but there used to be an abandoned gas station up there.
Yeah,
Okay, at about 7 o'clock one night, what's his name down here, Chester Fosdick? Not Fosdick, Chester
Lojack.
Lojack. And Stan had
Mhm.
went broke there with a white Freightliner. And, they come in, they took it. Well, Chester had the tire station there.
yeah,
And, at 7 o'clock that night, the guy that owned the station demanded he was gonna get the tire station too. So about 6 or 7 hours later, he was all sitting up there in that abandoned gas station.
Hmm.
And that's what put Jim in business. Even the trucks, the front tires and everything, he had everything there just to do it with.
mm-hmm,
Then he built that one garage up there, and he tore it down because, that place he was talking about, they had bought that property through
right,
that truck stop there. They were one furnishing the money. And Jim goes and tells him, says, you gotta move out. I'll move out, it's gonna cost you $200,000. How's that? Well, I got a contract for so long, so Jim had to borrow and steal, and got the money for it. But he was gonna have enough money, he was gonna buy that property back, then all, Crane bought it out from under Jim.
mm,
But now, Jim's worth about 30 million now. But you gotta know the right people at the right place at the right time.
mm-hmm. Well, Wheeler's in the printing business, and my one neighbor works for him. There's been a number of people in Richfield that have worked for him, but he wanted to relocate his business into Richfield, and so they gave him all kinds of grief, and so he put it in. Where is it that he's at? Valley View, or I think Valley View, I think is what he's at. I forget now. And now it's like about 2-3 times the size that it was, and would have been a nice business to have here.
Well, didn't he have started out in that, on the corner down there, used to be old stage house?
Yeah, he might have been there when he first started. Might have been, but they gave him all kinds of problems.
Well, they give anybody problems.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, when I went down to Columbus with Dr. Gary Dominic, because he's on village council now too, we were talking about that. We were talking about how the planning commission, you come in there and it says in the zoning requirements that there should be landscaping. Well, the planning commission, they'll sit there and they'll say, well, what kind of plants are you gonna plant? Oh, we're gonna put some flowers in, we'll put some flowers in, are they gonna be annuals or perennials? Well, we're gonna put some annuals in the spring for some color. Well, what kind of color are you gonna have? Well, we'd like to have like some red flowers, maybe. Well, what shade of red? Oh, we thought maybe a bright red. Well, no, I think it should be a more subdued red. And it's like I told Gary, I said, if it's that important, put it in the planning code that you must have this particular shade of red flower. It's ridiculous. The planning code is supposed to be there so that a business wanting to establish a business can come in, look at the code. This is what we need. Go to the zoning commissioner or inspector and say, this is what I'm thinking of. Here's the code. Here's our plan. Okay, let's put it together. Go over to the zoning commission. They can look it over, see if there's any obvious problems or if any of the neighbors have any problems, and then go through it. But everybody on the board's got a different idea. Well, you had that. You wanted to paint that barn, wasn't it? Well, what color are you going to paint it? If it's that important, put it in the code.
Paint it red, they didn't like the red. But the thing of it is,
Nobody ever heard of a red barn before, right? Who ever heard of a barn painted red?
you gotta settle down, because you notice that our United States business is all picked up and the jobs, got a lot of jobs.
Mm-hmm.
Trump gets his information from over here down here, Richfield Woods down here. Trump don't know how to do that, but these people here, these people with high school education will show him how to do it. I figured that's why he got it anyway.
But and it's just ridiculous. There's a number of businesses apparently that have tried to locate right along this stretch here in the last year or so and have been run off by the planning commission. For no other reason than the planning commission just knows that they can demand things.
Power.
Exactly.
They didn't do too good a job when they run the cornflake out, did they?
Run who off?
When they run the cornflake out, they didn't do too good a job.
No, what's that?
That's Consolidated Freightway.
Oh, yeah. Well, that was the one where they changed the zoning out from underneath them. It's the only property in that stretch of trucking companies that's zoned that you can't have a trucking company. It's the dumbest thing, but because the company that acquired it was a Consolidated, had a branch off from them, wasn't it? Wasn't it like a subsidiary split off? And they were going to use that, but while in the process of the split and the transfer of the property, they rezoned it against trucking companies, which is what it's been since the village was the village. But we agree. So hopefully Wheeler has a little more understanding of the problems small businesses had.
Wheeler, I know Wheeler myself.
Yeah.
In fact, I want to run charges on him. People don't put a sign in my yard.
I got one in my yard. My neighbor's got a Wheeler sticker on the side of his car, so
I just want somebody to attack him.
and he had a bunch of signs in in the back of his car a couple weeks ago, and I saw it, and I said, "Hey, can I have one of them signs?" And he said, "Sure." So I got a
Take the
wheeler
one
sign.
out of our yard, and put it in his yard, it gets more visibility.
Yeah, I'd like to have one too. Came kind of late already, though.
Yeah, Tuesday, it'll be this Tuesday.
Pastor, I'll
Mm.
forget that. Forgot. It was next week.
Well, I know he'll be in trouble if he gives you one and don't give me one.
Yeah, I got it. I can tell you what happened with my Trump signs, didn't I? When I had all my Trump signs up.
They kept this, what was it, your
They
neighbor?
smuggled.
Yeah.
So I put them out with, never sees, and I put never sees around the outside. You can't get that off your hands.
Mm-hmm.
So they must have tried to take them, and they got that never sees on their hands, and they got mad and lit my signs on fire.
People with
That's
your
good.
signs on fire?
Yeah.
Too bad you don't have a video camera to capture it.
I wish
One
I
of
would have
those, one of those
tried
trail
to put up
cams.
one of those, game cameras across the
Yeah.
street, you know.
Wait, did seriously let your sign on fire?
Yeah,
Why?
because they were Trump signs.
That's why I told Christopher, don't wear that, but big Cleveland hat. I got a Trump sign already. We got a Trump sign last Saturday. We went
Well, I
to
still
go
got,
over.
I still got Trump signs.
Yeah, but we just got a new one, Trump 2020 sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, so figure after the election, I'll stick it out. So we'll have a year with it. Our neighbor will love it.
So it disappears.
Oh, by the way, they decided they wanted me and Betty after all down at the election.
Oh, okay. So you're gonna be down at Richfield? Because I know there are a couple people that aren't doing it that normally did it.
Well, I think we got our notice yesterday. It gives us plenty of time.
Well,
Did you have any comments on the race action?
no, we didn't do cars. You know, for the size church we are, I think our church is taking over Richfield elections because we got you fit in there at the township now. And these two and myself in the village. So out of, let's see, there's what, 3 precincts in the village, 2 in the township. So out of Richfield, 5 precincts, we will have somebody in 4 out of the 5 precincts. That's pretty good.
Interesting.
At one point, my brother was in 1 precinct and his wife was in another precinct, and I was in the 3rd precinct in Richfield. So we had one of our family in each precinct.
Well, they got 2 in the township, 1 in the village, is that it?
Now there's 3 precincts in the village, 2 in the township.
Oh, okay.
But now you don't sit at separate tables. The precinct's all same table with those electronic things now. So yeah, that'll be coming up. So at any rate.
What did you talk about
On my program, I filled in for Pastor Lutz. They must have had something going on because the guys from his church aren't here tonight. So they must have had something going on.
You talked to Chris Long today.
On my program, we talked about the Senate Bill 11 and House Bill, what is it, 239 or 269, 369, 369. It's the companion to the Ohio Fairness Act. And this is the one that the Senate Bill 11 is basically, it's the law that's in Cuyahoga County right now that basically says that men can go into the women's restrooms and locker rooms and you can't tell them no, or you get in trouble. All the guy has to do is say he thinks he's a woman and you cannot refuse them.
All you have to do is put a gun to their head.
Well,
There was a
So-
love song, I feel like a woman.
yeah,
Just
something like
a
that.
few bars of that.
Yeah. So what happened then is they're trying to ram that through in Medina City, and they're trying to do it in was it Westchester or whatever on the north side of Columbus, and or Westerville.
Westerville?
Yeah, Westerville, which is just sits on the north side of Columbus, and they tried to do it in Chillicothe. People in Chillicothe, when they tried to push it through, filled the city hall, just like the the homosexual advocates filled the Medina City Hall building when they voted on it there. Well, the opponents, the people with common sense in Chillicothe filled the city hall chambers. And when they tried to pass it, they, in no uncertain terms, said no. And they managed to fight it off in Chillicothe. So that tells there's sensible people there.
What's chill, whatever you said.
So it's a city down southern part of the state,
Here?
southern part of Ohio. So Ohio's first
I think it's
capital was in
along the Ohio
Chillicothe.
River.
I believe so, yeah. It's the first capital of Ohio. It went from Chillicothe to Zanesville, and then back to Chillicothe, and then to Columbus. Capital did.
One of those Indian names,
Yeah, I like Cuyahoga, things like
or
that.
the state's railroad,
Mhm.
different towns with Indian names.
So, as a consequence, they're trying to push this through on the state level. And the state senator, Nikki Antonio, I believe is her name, out of Lakewood, who used to be a state representative and sponsored it in the House when she was there. Yeah, Nikki Antonio. She put it forward in the Senate. Well, in the Senate, it was oops. I thought I was hooked up to the internet. Just a minute here. Where'd my internet service go? Well, in the Senate, she's got it going, and I was just going to give you where it's at. But it's not had anything done with it. It's in the Judiciary Committee, but it's just kind of sitting there right now. And the Senate President, Larry Oboff, who's from Medina, is trying to keep it from going where. See, this is one of the ways they can kill bills, is they just kill it in the Senate. And the Senate, the Senate or the House leadership will try to encourage, the people on their party on the committee to just try to keep it. If you can keep the committee chairman from bringing it up for a vote, they can effectively stall it in the committee. Well, that's where it's at right now. Well, now it's has no Democrat co-sponsors because Nikki Antonio is a Democrat, but there's no Republican co-sponsors. That's what I meant to say. So there's no Republican co-sponsors on that one. Hey, Bob.
Hey, Bob.
So they're doing an end run in the House out of nowhere. And this is what we were talking about last week. They have this bill which now has a number. It's House Bill 369, and it's introduced by Representative Skindell, who's also from Lakewood. And he has introduced a bill with almost identical language to Senate Bill 11 in the House. And they convinced somehow Representative Hillier, who ran as a constitutionalist conservative platform, and he's co-sponsoring this bill in the House, which because of that, it's causing some Republicans who wavered to say, well, maybe it's not that bad of a thing, maybe I don't exactly like it, but, we need to be fair to these people. Well, it's not fairness that they want. When I was over at Medina, when they did that thing last spring, the Catholic Church pressured the Medina, they negotiated with the city council for their support. They got a carve out for churches, specifically them, in Medina City. See, Cuyahoga County has no carve out for churches. In fact, the churches that were there represented, of which Pastor Lutz was one that was at that, and their church is in Lakewood. When they tried to ask that churches be exempted, they said no. They refused to even consider exempting churches. And these state bills don't do that either. So in Medina, in order to get the support of the Catholic Church, they put this exemption in, but one of the one of the LGBTQ activists that was there said, there doesn't need to be an exception for churches. That was the opinion of the activists. But it went through in order to get it passed in Medina. So this all points to the reason why there needs to be a protection thing for churches and pastors in the state against being sued, because as it is right now, Pastor Lutz's church or Cleveland Baptist Church or any church in Cuyahoga County that tells some guy that he can't go into the women's restroom, and the guy takes offense at that, he can file a complaint. And in Cuyahoga County, you have to go to this unelected tribunal, basically, to defend and justify the fact that you're not a homosexual bigot, or homophobic bigot, I should say, a homophobic bigot. Now, that's completely contrary to our laws, because our laws say you're innocent until proven guilty. You have to be proven guilty beyond shadow of the, beyond reasonable doubt. And in these laws, all you have to do is have a complaint leveled against you. You have to prove yourself innocent. You have to make a compelling case that you're innocent, because you are assumed to be guilty until you can. That's completely contrary to law. Well, this is one of the reasons why the Supreme Court has some decisions that they've heard in the last few weeks that are dealing with these issues, because there's a movement to take the 1964 Civil Rights Act, which bans discrimination on the basis of race, faith, and gender, meaning whether you're male or female. They want to go back and reword that. Thankfully, the Ohio Attorney General, David Yost, sent a letter, an amicus brief, meaning a friend of the court, to the Supreme Court, saying, hey, if they want to change it, they need to change the law, not make a judicial decision. And one of the judges in the federal courts leading up to this said, well, we're just going to change it in the courts to save the legislature the trouble. Well, that's not how our country works. Our country is supposed to be governed by laws, and the way that you change a law is you go to the legislative body and you say, this is what we want, and then they can have hearings, they can have fact finding, people can have input, and then they vote to make a decision. Well, they know that people generally are not going to vote to open up bathrooms to men to go into women's bathrooms and locker rooms. So they know they'd likely lose the vote, so they don't want to go through the ballot. They want to go through judges and change the Civil Rights Act mean whatever you feel like today for gender, as opposed to what it clearly meant, which was male or female. And they're trying to do that through the courts. And as the one judge said, well, we're just going to save the legislature the trouble. No, that's not constitutional.
That's not the way it works.
Yeah, it's supposed to go through the judge. The courts can say, we don't think that this law is constitutional. Legislature needs to rework it. And then it goes back to them. It's just like when they voted, or didn't vote, nobody voted the Bible out of the public school. What happened was a judge did it. Some judges or justices in the Supreme Court did it.
Same thing with Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, same thing. And same thing taking prayer out of the public school. They knew that if they had proposed in the Senate or the House, hey, let's, in 1960s, early 60s, if they had made a proposal, hey, let's pass a law that you can't read the Bible in the public school. Who would have voted for that back then? They knew they couldn't get it through in the legislative branch, so they did an end around unconstitutionally around the legislative branch, and they passed it a judicial ruling through the courts. And now people think it's law, but it's really just a court ruling. Same with Roe versus Wade. The Roe versus Wade basically said that you cannot restrict abortion. Any laws that say, and same thing with the Obergefell decision that legalized same-sex marriage in the sense that it said you can't have any laws that say that you can't have same-sex marriage are unconstitutional. So it didn't really make a law, but it effectively did, because they know that people would not have voted that way because numerous states, Ohio included, had voted defensive marriage acts in place prior to that said marriage is between a man and a woman. That's it. And they knew that that was the sentiment of the people, so they pushed it through the courts to overturn all those laws through the courts. And California's another example. California passed some laws, Defensive Marriage Act, and the California courts removed it. They said, no, that's not lawful in California.
They wouldn't allow them even to defend it.
No, the people who were, yeah, they said
He
you
said
don't
they
have
had no
standing.
legal standing.
And they're the people who helped pass the thing. And they railroaded the whole, fabric of our representational government to railroad it to force upon people these views. That's what they're trying to do with these things. And so they're trying various ways. But by getting this freshman Republican in the Ohio House signed on as a co-sponsor, and still nobody knows why he did it. I just wonder what they got on him, what they threatened him with, what's going on. Is there something in his background that he's got that they know, and they said, hey, if you don't sign on, we're going to broadcast this. But now he's signed on, and some squishy Republicans are now on the fence saying, hey, this will give us an excuse to vote for this. So this is why we need to pray for our government and, for those in authority. I was going to find that verse here. Let's see. Oops. Helps if I spell things correctly.
Romans 13:4.
Probably is. Go ahead and read it if you've got
For
it.
he is the minister of God to thee for good.
Oh, no, that's not the one I'm looking for. Yeah. Helps if I can see what I'm writing or what keys I'm hitting. I don't know why I can't find it. I'm looking for that one where it talks about praying for those in authority over us.
That you might live a quiet, peaceful
Peacefully,
life.
yeah.
Yeah. And everything I put in, nothing is bringing it up.
What is Corinthians? I don't know.
And then I hit the wrong key and just canceled it out.
1 Timothy 2:2.
That sounds about right.
1 Timothy.
1 Timothy 2:2, yeah, for kings, that's where he says, it starts in verse 1 where he says, I exhort therefore that first of all supplications, prayers, intercessions, and giving of thanks be made for all men, for kings and for all that are in authority, that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and honesty. And I must have been hitting the button wrong somehow, because I had authority in there and I had, I had it in there, but it didn't show up. Now I got it. But yeah, I mean, this is what we're supposed to do. We're supposed to, and that's where, like this Representative Hillier, we need to pray for him, because if this thing passes, it'll give forced to the one in the Senate. Now, likely, if it makes it through the House and the Senate, the governor may veto it, and they probably would not have as yet the votes to override a governor's veto. But it's a troubling thing because it shows how much progress they're making, because Nikki Antonio, as Representative Antonio, introduced it at least 2 sessions in a row. So now that she's in the Senate, she's introduced it again. So it's not made it,
Eventually they'll
it's died.
succeed.
Yeah,
If they keep plugging away. like they do.
yeah, and that's what they do. And it's just like it's been said, Christians are the largest voting bloc, but we're also the largest non-voting bloc. So if Christians would just simply get up and vote their biblical values, a lot of these things would not stand a chance. There's just so many more of us than them. You know, if you look at the transgender community, it's less than 1% of the US population. If you look at the homosexual community, it's less than 5% of the population. But they make a lot of noise. And that's the thing. They make an awful lot of noise.
They get a lot of money behind them too.
And you know, they're such a disadvantaged community that
Well,
they
when they-
tend to
when
be
they don't
more
have-
affluent than other people.
Well, they don't have kids to spend money on.
Well, that's part of it. That is exactly part of it. And they tend to have the luxury of, you know, being in higher paying jobs and things like that, and not spending it on kids. And it's anything in order to destroy the fabric of society, because the devil wants to destroy and corrupt all that's good. And God created Adam and Eve, and he brought them together as husband and wife. So what does same-sex marriage do? It makes a mockery of Adam and Eve, husband and wife. And we talked before, in not everyone, but in a great many homosexual relationships or couples, one is masculine and one is feminine. So if you look at 2 men, one of the men is typically more masculine and the other one is typically more feminine. Same with 2 women. One is typically more feminine, one's typically more masculine. There's exceptions, obviously, but it's just something that I've noticed since the 1970s. And, you know, so I when it occurred to me, I really paid attention. And I've talked to other people said the same thing. So, you know, now if you say that, the way to shut down what you're saying, since they can't argue with the fact that this is a typical thing, well, then they just throw out the homophobic slur. And, oh, you're a hater, you're this, you're that.
Jealous hater.
Yeah. But so here's my contention. And the reason I bring this up too, you know, is at the Medina City Council meeting, there was a couple there, 2 women. And the girl next to her, and they sat holding hands most of the night. The girl next to her was dressed in a much more feminine fashion. And my question then would be, if a girl who is dressed in a feminine fashion really does not like men, why is she attracted to a woman that's trying to look like a man? I mean,
You think too much.
that's the problem. So that right there gets you labeled homophobic, politically incorrect. I can see why the woman dressed like a man, if she doesn't like men, would be attracted to the woman that's dressed like a woman, because she only likes women. It would make sense. So, but this is a mockery of what God created. God created, like we said, God created Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, or on the flip side, Madam and Eve. You know, he created male and female, created he them, the Bible says. And it's for a purpose, so that the human race can be propagated. Well, there's a reason that certain groups push all of this transgendered and same-sex and everything relationships, is because they don't have kids. And part of these people want the human race the population of the world to be reduced to 500 million with an M. That means a lot of people have to be gotten rid of, and they don't want people to be born. So by encouraging this mindset, you reduce the number of people being born. By, and there's all kinds of things that come together. By banning DDT, you ensure that a lot of people in certain
They had on the news just yesterday that the world birth rate is way down.
is down.
Yeah.
So see, they kept saying it's just going to keep going exponentially. So you can still put everybody in the world in the state of Texas.
Yeah, room left.
Yeah.
Sure.
And
It would be cozy, but hey.
yeah, well, everybody could have, I think it's about a quarter acre or something like that. They would be living in a less dense population concentration than you are in Garfield Heights
There you go.
or Bedford.
I figured in Texas, I figured the Chinese would fill it.
Well, obviously they'd fill it, but there's enough land in Texas that you could put everybody in the world in there. We worked that out one time. World population is growing. We worked it out one time a few years ago. Took the world population and the number of acres in Texas. I think it came out to or 1/4 acre.
Yeah.
But everybody, there's a lot of room.